Hello everyone, TLSG here, back again with another daily Marvel Snap video. So it is Saturday, that means it is Sulky Hulky's time to shine. If this is the first video of mine that you're seeing, we have a plethora of content, but Sulky Hulky is our free-to-play locked account. We are climbing through Marvel Snap without spending a single penny. We're just doing the daily missions, the daily resets, and using the tools that we have without spending anything in the game. So this week we do have 5 collector's reserves to unlock. We hit rank 1000, which means we switched from collector's caches to collector's reserves. So there's a lesser chance to pull a card in each chest. But let's go ahead and see what we pull. Okay, so 400 credits will help us kind of bump up. Then we get magic. So magic is phenomenal. And I know people that are really deep into the collection and don't have magic. So let's see if we get something else. I don't really want to use her as a standalone card, but let's see. So a couple of new avatars, and then this is our last collector's reserves. This is the last one. Let's see if we get one more card here. Cerebro. Bro. We ended up pulling the Cerebro. So Cerebro decks are pretty inconsistent because they are so reliant on locations. Let's take a look at our pull 3 cards to see what we want to build around. We do have Mr. Negative, which is a pretty cool polarizing card in and of himself. But if we use Mr. Negative, when we stick to our kind of conditions that you can only run one pull 3 card, building Mr. Negative feels difficult. Mysterio is a good card, but he's more of a supporter instead of an absolutely polarizing card. Doc Ock is absolutely chaos. And without the proper counter cards, it's going to be really difficult. Typhoid Mary without something like a Zero or a Venom to counteract that ability. Really, really tough. Kingpin, always tough. Rock Slide could fit into just about anywhere. Magneto is always good. All right, so we didn't pull any core archetype defining cards this week. So we're going to go back and use one of the ones that we pulled in a previous week. You're going to use Human Torch. And with Human Torch from pull 3, honestly, I think that is all that you need to make the move archetype feel relatively valid. And so we're going to go ahead and jump over into the deck draft, and I'll see you there. All right, and so here we have our move deck list. So featuring around Human Torch. Human Torch is a good enabler for some really high roll style plays, but the rest of the move components at this point really start coming into place at the end of pull 3. Yes, you can improve this a little bit by potentially dropping like multiple man and adding in a dagger and maybe a few other small techs or tweaks, but overall I feel like this is the core list, and there's a couple of tech slots that you can mess around with, but a lot of times this is really all that you're going to need. And so running through the deck list really quickly, we have Human Torch. Every single time that he gets moved, he's going to double in power. So if he is 2 power when we drop him, he's going to go 4, 8, 16, 32, so on and so forth. If we drop him and then drop a Hulkbuster on top of him, he becomes a 6 power card immediately. As soon as he gets moved once, it becomes a 12 power card. This is where you can really start seeing your high roll gameplay come into effect. We have Iron Fist. This is going to be an easy way for us to enable a first turn move or an initial move. So we can drop Iron Man at the end of turn 2 if we have a Hulkbuster, and let's say we have Human Torch on the ground. Hulkbuster will merge with Human Torch and actually end up moving that one on that same turn for some pretty decent upside. And then we have Angela. Angela is going to be a decent card in this list because we have a lot of low cost cards. Plus we can always drop Cloak in a different lane after the fact to move the cards that have buffed Angela up out of that lane. We can then drop more cards in the Angela lane to buff her up further. So we can get some decent upside out of the Angela in this list. And then we have Kraven. Kraven is a good card for whenever we end up using our Heimdall shift at the very end of the game. For every card that moves into one of his lanes, he gets plus 2 power. So let's say he is the only card in the left lane and we drop a Heimdall, and 3 cards move over there. He's going to get plus 6 just by being there. So Kraven can do some pretty crazy things and start some pretty big high rolls by himself. And then we have Multiple Man. Multiple Man you have to be careful with. You don't want to move him all over the board too much because at 3 power it's a little bit lackluster, but he is in this deck list because he is a great target for our Hulkbuster. If we don't draw into Human Torch, Multiple Man is probably our second primary target to merge with Hulkbuster. A 7 power card that duplicates every time he's moved is a lot more impactful than a 3 power card. Again, you guys can do math, but his impact becomes so much more prevalent whenever he's moving around the board at 7 power. And then we have Cloak. This is going to be an enabler for a lot of our movement style cards. We can always drop a Cloak on turn 5 for some kind of mind games with the opponent. Are we going to move our cards over and then shift them with Heimdall? Do we just move some and then drop our Iron Man? Or maybe we've already dropped Iron Man, we move them around and then just drop Chavez. Cloak enables a lot of mind games, which movement can be a little bit difficult to run and navigate, but you can make the opponent misplay by giving them misinformation so that they push their power in the wrong directions. And then we have Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange on reveal will move your highest power card to that location. This is going to be a good card to help snowball your movement cards further. So Doctor Strange can be used to move a Human Torch if it's high enough, a multiple man. Let's say you have 2 multiple men on the board and they're at 7 power and that is your highest power card. Doctor Strange is going to move both of them to gain that extra 14 power in whatever lane he's in, and then of course they go back to the original lane they were from. A lot of decent utilization from Doctor Strange in this list. We have Vulture. Every time he moves, he's going to get +5 power. So even if we just move him once, twice, he becomes a really formidable 3-cost card that becomes really difficult to deal with pretty quickly. And then we have Hulkbuster. Hulkbuster is going to be great at enabling some of our movement cards. So both Human Torch and Multiple Man, he's phenomenal for. Otherwise, maybe we just drop him with a Kraven, drop him with a Vulture to start that power push. But his biggest, most impactful targets are Multiple Man and Human Torch. And then we have Iron Man. Iron Man is going to enable us to sometimes not drop Heimdall. Maybe the opponent has an absolute killer lockdown left lane, or maybe they have a Kingpin located in the left lane. We can drop Iron Man, and then instead of dropping Heimdall on turn 6, we can drop our Chavez, and then we end up not needing to shift our power. Iron Man is going to help us enable that huge power push to allow us to have that opportunity or that option to not move at the end of the game. And then we have Heimdall. He moves all of your other cards one location to the left. Now, this can be pretty transparent, and that's where a lot of movement decks fail, is that a lot of opponents can anticipate the Heimdall drop, and they can play a lot of power in the far right lane, or a little bit of power in the far right lane, and then push a lot of power into one of the other 2 lanes in anticipation of you moving most of your resources out of the right lane. But with Heimdall and with this deck list, we don't have to drop him every time. It is the threat or the potential presence of Heimdall that allows us to start those mind games with the opponent to try to make them misplay, or maybe sometimes it's just best to get a raw power push and we drop Heimdall and then our multiple man duplicates everywhere, our Human Torch buffs up our Vulture, our Kraven. There are going to be games where we want to drop him, and then other games where we want to drop Chavez instead. And speaking of Chavez, she is our last card in this list. She comes into this list as a way to help draw into your movement pieces a little bit earlier. So since we don't have all of the movement cards, we don't have Dagger in this list, we are down 1 movement component or movement card compared to other lists. She allows us to draw into the cards that we want to, or are our priority cards, more consistently by being in the deck list. And coming in as at a 9 power play on turn 6, sometimes that is enough to swing a game in our favor. The opponent is not always going to anticipate that we have a Chavez. In my head, when I see a movement deck, my only thought as for a 6-cost card drop is a Heimdall. And so Chavez is going to sometimes be that little sneaky play so that we don't have to push our cards and we can win one of the lanes that we've already invested resources in. But that is the rundown of the deck list. We are going to go ahead and jump into a few games. I hope you guys enjoy. All right, so first up we have Feet Whisperer. Where do people come up with these things? We're going to go ahead and drop our Human Torch into the far right lane. That's going to allow us to have the potential to move him into the middle location with something like a Cloak. Ooh, and then Project Pegasus does allow us to do some pretty cool things here. So what we can do is we can actually drop our Doctor Strange first. That'll move our Human Torch over. We can then drop a Vulture here. Oh no. We can then drop a Kraven here. Okay, let's get this play line in the order correct. So we drop Kraven first, we drop Doctor Strange, that is going to move our Human Torch. That will buff Kraven by 2, and then we can drop Cloak in the far right lane. That's going to allow us to move our Kraven and our Human Torch again, to be able to start them snowballing pretty decently. So let's go ahead and drop that play in. They do drop 2 cards onto the board. Okay, and so then we move our Human Torch over, which then they both Kraven and Human Torch become 4 power cards. So a good start to that movement enabling effect. And so they drop a Sunspot and a Black Widow, which feels pretty bad, but that is also their large power play. That is their large power push that they have already done. So let's move the Kraven first, then we move the Human Torch. and then we will drop both Vulture and Widow's Bite. And then I think we leave a space open in both of these lanes. That way, as we draw into additional resources, we can kind of adjust from there. So now we have an 8 power Human Torch, a 6 power Kraven. The thing with Project Pegasus, or the Project Pegasus lane, is that it makes it really easy to run out of your cards or the resources in your hand. If you are playing like a lower curve or a deck that doesn't have an incredibly high curve, then it makes it too easy to flood the board. So they dropped a wave. We were going to use a Hulkbuster, hope that it merged with a Human Torch. If not, that's okay. And then we were hoping for a Heimdall to shift at the end, or maybe an Iron Man, maybe even a Chavez would be enough to win us the left lane, but Feet Whisperer did end up retreating. So far we are 1-0. Let's go ahead and jump into the next game. All right, so next up we have Gnosis, and we discarded our Angela, which is not terrible. That's fine. She's a decent high power push, but she's not absolutely required. So if we lose her, now Hulkbuster is a little bit harder to swallow. I would much rather have the Hulkbuster than Angela, than maybe even Vulture or Doctor Strange, but unfortunately that's not the way that this game is going to play. So let's go ahead and drop our Iron Fist this turn. If we draw into Human Torch, then we will absolutely drop that one next turn. If not, then we drop our Vulture to allow that to start getting buffed up. And then they use a Black Widow. What is with all of the Black Widows lately? It's such a good disruption card. It comes at a low power push, but overall, just the presence that it offers is so massive. So let's go ahead and drop our Vulture, which will move because of the Iron Fist. And then I think we drop our Widow's Bite into the far right lane. Let's go ahead and do that. That's going to be an 8 power Vulture right off the bat, which is pretty decent. They send us a Goblin, which is not great for us. So we don't have any way to pull or maneuver that around. We can drop our Doctor Strange next turn to pull our Vulture one more time. And do we do that this turn? I think we do. I think we pull the Vulture back over into the right lane. Next turn, we will either drop our Iron Man or our Kraven and then whatever else we draw, so that we can set up that potential turn 6 large power movement push. And so let's go ahead and do the Doctor Strange. That's going to allow our Vulture to buff up again, and then we can even enable him one more time pretty easily with the Heimdall at the very end. And so they did send us a Goblin, which feels pretty bad. Okay, and so here we have some disruption. So they're running it like a low to the ground deck, almost like a bounce style deck list, but at the same time, it's not bounce. So I really like the idea of setting up the Kraven and the Multiple Man. That's going to allow us to keep some consistent power into Nova Roma or into Xandar and push it over here to spread it back. But I'm not so certain that that's the play. I think we have a reasonable lead in Xandar. So I think this game, actually, it's going to be better that we drop Iron Man as long as they don't disrupt this one. I could see them running like a Professor X to stop us from being able to move our cards. And if so, this Iron Man or either play really would not be something that would be beneficial. But I think Iron Man is going to be our best bet. Then we can just drop a Chavez. They're probably going to think that we're going to end up moving. Oh no, the Hobgoblin. So the Kraven and Multiple Man does turn out that it would have been the right call. So here's what I'm talking about, some of those mind games. If I am in Gnosis's shoes right now, I'm thinking I've automatically won the left lane because they're going to drop a Heimdall, right? That leaves me losing Nova Roma, and so I just have to invest a little bit of resources over in Xandar. Maybe as long as I push at least 8 power, I can win that one. So I think what we're going to do is just drop a Chavez. I don't think we're going to shift our cards around. Although Heimdall, it moves the cards in the order that they were played. So it's going to do Iron Fist, Green Goblin, and then Iron Man. So it's going to be 10, it's going to be 7, it's going to be 14 power here. And that leaves 3 spaces. So then Widow's Bite, Doctor Strange, and then Vulture buffs up even further. Heimdall may still be the play. I do like the Chavez, the idea of Chavez, because I think if they invest resources, it's either here or here. But let's lock in the Heimdall shift. I feel okay about this one. So they do a Doctor Doom, which spreads power wide, but I don't think that's enough. The Chavez in the far left lane would have actually won it for us. So interesting. We'll see how this one plays out the rest of the way. Our Doctor Strange, our Vulture will buff up even further. It's another 5. Is that enough to keep us out of the above 8? 13 power. Woo, okay. That was a stressful one, guys. With the goblins that came down, we had to really think through the play. It turns out that either way, it was fine. All right, so next up we have TLYN, that lovely young man, TLYM. Let's go ahead and just skip turn 1. We don't have anything we can play. If we don't draw into anything better, then we're going to drop Multiple Man on 2, which is going to allow us to merge him with our Hulkbuster on 3. And then we're going to be able to start just like spreading him like the plague. We are going to spread him like a bad disease, push him all over the board, pull him, twist him, contort him in every which way that we can to get that 7 power in as many locations as we possibly can muster. So let's go ahead and do the Hulk Buster. We do draw into Human Torch, but I think waiting an additional turn, trying to start your snowball on 4 instead of having it already going on 3, I think that 1 extra turn is too important. So let's go ahead and merge our Hulk Buster with Multiple Man, and they're running, I'm not sure what kind of list they're running. They're running a Domino, Captain America. So Captain America may just be for the Shield Challenge, but Domino is not something I see very often, or I guess utilized very well even. So let's go with Kraven and Cloak here. That's going to allow us to move our card, our Multiple Man once, and maybe we should have initially started him over here. I don't know. That'll allow us to move our Multiple Man once. Kraven will buff up. And then depending on what we draw into or what it looks like, maybe we drop an Iron Man in the middle location as well, and just avoid the shift altogether this game. Okay, and so they run a rescue, so they're going to be able to move their cards as well. We do draw into Heimdall. That almost makes me want to play our Iron Man into Hell's Kitchen. At that point, we have a Multiple Man that's going to be over there. We can drop Heimdall in the far left lane, and that will leave 7 power in the right lane, 14 power in the middle lane, and then absolutely wreck the left lane with power, which I think is an okay playline or an okay idea of a playline. Or would we rather do something like Human Torch and Vulture? Then if we do drop Heimdall, that's going to send 19 power. That'll send 19 power with the Human Torch and Vulture. Human Torch and Vulture. That one's a tough one. I do think I like the Iron Man just a little bit better, but it definitely was a tough call, because if they lock this down with like a Professor X, okay, Taskmaster is not terrible. That will copy the 10 power from the Taskmaster, and so we have to see if we're going to be able to come up over 28 power, because we can't play cards in that location on this turn. So if we move, with Heimdall, leaves... Ooh, we might be able to. So at least 7 here. So 7, 14, 15, 16, 17. Oh my gosh, we would be too short. We would be short by 2, not like amount of height. That puts us at 26. That is heartbreaking. I think the shift is still our best play though. We can drop Heimdall here. It's gonna push 7 power here. It will pull 7 power back over here. So we'll have 3 multiple men. Actually, we'll have 4 multiple men across the board, but a 13 power lane here, a pretty huge lane in Nidavellir. I think we can. I think this location is going to come in clutch for us. Okay, and so they drop. Okay, our Heimdall shift happens. Let's go ahead and have our multiple men snap back. Our Kraven buffs up a couple of times. Everything buffs up because of Nidavellir. Let's go ahead and have our multiple men snap back into their rightful locations. We do win the far right lane. I think we win the far left lane as well, unless they have something Shang-Chi-able. Oh my gosh, huge, so huge. Very, very good game. We almost had the power level here. We almost had it here. The Shang-Chi came in absolutely critical for him. Was a huge enabler. Had Nidavellir not been a location, I think we could have absolutely locked this lane down, because these would have been 7. Kraven may not have been right there. I know that whatever else moved with him, Vulture would have been targeted, so maybe we wouldn't have, but it would have been close nonetheless. All right, so next up we have M13. Starting off, we do have our Iron Fist. I don't know that we want to drop it just yet though, because we don't know what we're going to draw into next. We don't know if that's going to be a multiple man. We don't know if it's going to be a Human Torch, potentially Vulture. Let's go ahead and hold it for 1 turn until we have a better idea of what we have or what we will have in hand. So we do draw into Human Torch, which is huge. We need to position ourselves so that at the end of the game, if everything shifts or if anything shifts around, that we'll be able to have the max amount of power in Mojo World. So I think what we do is we're going to drop... I like the idea of dropping Kraven, but I'm actually just going to drop an Iron Fist. I'm gonna drop an Iron Fist into Mojo World, and then I'm gonna drop Human Torch here. That's gonna allow us to drop our Doctor Strange on 3 to pull Human Torch back over, get him to an early 8 power push, and then we can see if maybe we can draw into a Cloak to move him back to Mojo World, and finally and ultimately push him into Dark Dimension as a like 16 power card, which is absolutely huge. And then maybe he ends up just staying in Mojo World with them thinking that we will push out. Okay, and so I think we do go with the Doctor Strange play. That guarantees that we target the Human Torch. And then we can see what we draw into after that to kind of buff it up further. But they ran a Mr. Sinister first, so that tells me they probably have like a Patriot deck list, which is going to be pretty scary. Okay, so I don't want multiple man at the 3 cost to really fly around the place. I'm going to drop Cloak here, Craven here. We're going to be able to move these cards over. We will technically cap out this location for now, and then we see what it looks like after that. So they cap out the location as well for now. After this next turn, we will definitely have the advantage by moving our cards over, at least until they drop something like a Patriot, a Mystique, and all of those good high power cards. Ooh, we actually do draw into Heimdall, so if we want to at the last turn, we can shove all of these cards over into the Dark Dimension. But them running a Patriot deck, trying to compete for Washington, D.C. feels ill-advised. It doesn't feel great. So what I want to try to do is get 3 cards here. Actually, going into turn 5, this feels like a bad idea. I know that this deck list, so if they don't drop something here this turn, then I think we should be okay. But if they drop something here this turn, we may be in trouble. So it's the Misty Knight, probably a Patriot, and then the Onslaught would allow it to be doubled on turn 6, and so that would end up being plus 4 power to each token. And so looking at the math, if it is an Onslaught and a Patriot, it's going to be 2, 4, 6, 8. These 2 are not tokens, so they're only going to be, I feel pretty confident. I want to snap, but I think it'll scare them off. An Onslaught here is going to be 6 power plus the 1 from the Patriot is going to be 7. Our Chavez will actually sneakily win this location. And we don't even have to shift. We can keep the Mojo World capped out. Let's snap. Let's see if we can keep them in here. All right, so it doesn't look like they're going anywhere. I think we have a really good shot at winning, because unless they extend the game, and then that really doesn't do them much good anyways. We can overcome the power level here. We overcome the power level here. Ooh, maybe a Wasp though. A Wasp could win it for them if they do an Onslaught and a Wasp here. Another 4, so it'd be like an 11 power push. We're gonna go for it anyways. Oh, okay, perfect. So the Wasp they put into Washington, D.C. Ooh, okay. So they're anticipating the movement or the shift. That's not going to help them. We sneak out the Dark Dimension with a Chavez. Keep the Mojo World capped out where they thought they were going to have the card advantage and that we were going to have to either push something into Washington, D.C. I don't know. We got very, very fortunate, very lucky that they dropped the Wasp over into Washington, D.C. We will take it. We will take the cubes, and let's go ahead and rinse and repeat. Jump over into the next one. All right. So next up we have Spider Pool. And in our starting hand, we have the Multiple Man, we have Vulture. So if we draw into Hulkbuster here, we will absolutely start enabling our Multiple Man movement. Otherwise, maybe we play it a little bit more cautiously. We can drop a Craven into the far left lane to set up a Heimdall shift to really buff him up towards the end of the game. Or we can play him into mid, and then I think he gets buffed up. If I remember right, if he's the first card there, he technically is the first card that moves, he'll still buff up with all of the other cards that move into the vault on that last turn. And that's if my remembering is correct. And so let's go with the Craven here. I think next turn we may go with a Vulture, and then we could do the Vulture, and then we could do a Doctor Strange over here. Baxter Building is going to be a decent lane to try to push power in. So if we do 2, next turn we'll have 4 power, so we would have to do the Hulkbuster. And then we would have 5 power. We could do Doctor Strange. We could do a Cloak and a Doctor Strange. But we would want to do Doctor Strange on a turn early, because turn 4 would be Hulkbuster. Turn 5 would be Cloak and Vulture. 6 would be Doctor Strange. That allows us to like manipulate Multiple Man a lot. I actually think I like that quite a bit. Let's go with the Multiple Man here. We'll go with Hulkbuster, the loose play line that I drew out in my mind here. They discard a Swordmaster. They also have the Swarm, so we need to be cautious or aware of those. And so here, let's go with, I mean, we could, I like the idea or the potential play line of having those even spread power points all across the board. And so let's go with a, I don't know that we go with a Human Torch this game. Does that hurt us any? Doesn't hurt us to have it on the board, I guess. So we're going to go with the Hulkbuster into Multiple Man instead of the guaranteed Hulkbuster into Human Torch. That is going to allow us to next turn drop a Vulture and a Cloak to allow us to start moving the Multiple Man around the board. Doctor Strange, whenever he grabs Multiple Man, or whenever he's played, he'll grab all of the Multiple Men on the board. It'll end up being something like 3 Multiple Men that we have out on the board. I think we do our, I don't know, Heimdall's pretty decent in pushing all of this power around. Maybe we do Cloak here, Doctor Strange, the Multiple Man here. That will allow us to pull 1 Multiple Man over. It buffs up Craven. We can then move Craven, Multiple Man, and Multiple Man over into this lane on 6. and then drop a Heimdall to push all of our power around. That's going to be an absolutely nuts play. I think they have a pretty good advantage, but let's go ahead and scare them a little bit with the snap. We know that we're going to have a pretty like even spread power level. That's going to be close to 20 power in each of the 3 lanes, which if you even them out is not bad overall. So they drop an Angela and a Morbius into the discard lane. So they only have 1 discard that they're going to be able to drop. So maybe they do something like a Dracula and then a discard card. That's still only going to discard twice. And so let's go with the multiple man. The multiple man, that's going to leave a multiple man here and here. Oh, wait. So they can't play over into the vault. So we have that lane locked down. So let's go ahead and do the, why do we have 8 energy? So we're going to drop the Kraven over here. We're going to drop the multiple, we're going to move the multiple man, the multiple min. And then I think we do our Heimdall here. That's going to push... That's going to push multiple men all over the place. So by moving them here, we have these back in place. We would drop our Heimdall. Kraven would of course be here and get buffed up. Heimdall would allow us to move the cloak, the Kraven, and one of the multiple men back over here, which then they would snap back over here. We'd have the one over here. They would have been all over the place, but unfortunately they did end up retreating. So let's go ahead and rinse and repeat, jump into the next one. All right, so next up we have Cicada Jin, and we have Iron Fist in our starting hand, but we don't have a good enabler or something that we want to really push around. And so I think what we're going to do is drop Cloak into the Angela lane. That's going to allow us to do something like an Iron Man and a multiple man, or really start buffing up the Angela. We can then move those cards out with Cloak and get a decent amount of upside from the Angela in this game. So cards can't be destroyed in the far right lane, which is good, or good for us. Let's go ahead and just drop the Iron Fist this turn. Or yeah, we're just going to drop the Iron Fist this turn. I don't think we force a Cloak this early. We want at least Vulture on the board before we do Cloak. Multiple man, I mean, feels kind of bad. Kind of bad to have on the board, but we can go ahead and play him. Just that way we can move him back over with the Cloak next turn. We can leave a little bit of power in this lane just to kind of get it started anyways. And so let's go ahead and do our Vulture here, which will buff up our Angela, and then he'll get moved out. Oh, I did my math wrong. We can't do both, can we? Well, we're still going to go with the Vulture. Next turn, we can set up a Cloak or an Iron Man play, depending on what we think we're gonna need. Honestly, it may be the Iron Man play. It may be a play where we do Iron Man here, and then we do like a Chavez into Clintar, depending on what it looks like they have. So I do like the Human Torch here. Okay, so we're going to do Human Torch. We're going to do Cloak. That's going to allow us to move our Vulture and Human Torch over to get buffed up again. After this turn, we can also do the multiple man if we want to just kind of spread his 3 power around the board, and we can move a subset of them as well. We don't have to move all of them around the board. So they drop a Sarah, so they're going to be able to push quite a bit of power onto the board, which is a little bit scary. But this would make this one. So right now it's 8 plus 5 more would be 13, plus another 5 would be ridiculous levels. So that's going to be fine for a Heimdall shift. We can then do multiple man, which is okay for a Heimdall shift. We can do Human Torch, and then we drop our Heimdall in the far left. That will push the Angela and the Iron Fist over this way, which are both okay. And then Vulture is going to be huge in this lane. He's going to get the Monster Metropolis buff. The multiple man will retain a little bit of power here, but mostly he's just going to be around. And then Human Torch would be decently sized as well. So the Angela being able to shift over into Clintar, I think, is what like pushed us over the edge, because Cicada Jin did end up retreating against us. All right, and so with that last win out of the way, we are going to go ahead and end the video here. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. Overall, the movement list feels pretty solid. You need to be in a mindset that you are paying very close attention to your moves, your potential play lines, because it requires a little bit more forethought than other archetypes. But overall, I think it has a lot of power potential, and is incredibly fun to see the types of swings that you can make happen with the list. But overall, guys, I hope that you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to leave it a like and a comment down below. As always, this has been TLSG. Later, guys.